Rolling. Good evening and welcome to the June 6th, 2024 meeting of the Athens-Clarke County Planning Commission. For those of you viewing the meeting remotely, you will find the meeting agenda on the Planning Department website at accgov.com/planning. For those of you attending here in person, on the table by the door, you will find a sign-in sheet and copies of tonight's agenda. For each agenda item, we will begin with a report from ACC planning staff, which will be followed by a presentation by the applicant, not to exceed 10 minutes. We will then hear from members of the public. 3 minutes are allowed for any member of the public who wishes to address the Planning Commission. When addressing the commission, please provide your name, address, and the nature of your interest in the project, and direct your comments to the Planning Commission and not to the applicants. The audience is instructed to refrain from applauding or jeering the speakers. Exhibits may be displayed by the applicants or members of the public at the podium. Written correspondence received by noon yesterday has been forwarded to the Planning Commission and is part of the public record. Any additional written materials to be placed into the record must be read aloud during public comment within the 3-minute time. For all speakers, please pay attention to the timing device near the podium. The device will display a yellow warning light when you have 30 seconds left and a red light when your time is up. After the public comment period, the applicant or their representative may request a 2-minute response. After that, the applicant will take their seat in the audience. At this point, the public portion for this agenda item is closed and the Planning Commission will proceed to discuss the item. We will receive no additional public or applicant comments unless requested by a planning commissioner. Finally, please note that the microphones in this room are sensitive and that the meeting is being broadcast live. Please turn off or silence your cell phones. First item on our agenda under general business is introduction of staff reports and all other documents submitted to the Planning Commission at this meeting in the official.
I knew I was gonna do that. I'm like doing this every once. Moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion by Alice, second by Sarah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item 2 is approval of the May 2nd, 2024 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Alice, second by Sarah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And item 3 is May courts review and public comment. Do we have any May courts?
Nothing from May courts.
Is any member of the audience by chance here to comment on May courts? Okay. That brings us to the new business section of our agenda. And item 1 is address 0, 290, 210, and 322 North Avenue. Item number PD 2024-05-0935. Start with the staff.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen, for those in the audience. Planner 3 here. I'm here to present the staff report for the aforementioned properties on North Avenue. All right, the request is to go from commercial general zoning to commercial general with a planned development for the purpose of building a mixed-use commercial and residential project. The proposal includes a gas station and 10,000 square feet of commercial space, 128 multifamily units, works out to 260 bedrooms. 20% of those are being set aside for inclusion in our inclusionary zoning program. And the project also has some surface parking lots and a plaza. There are 5 waivers associated with the project. Would encourage you to look in your staff report for some more detailed analysis of those waivers. First one is to waive the requirement for 50% of the ground floor of the building to be a commercial use. Staff supports that waiver. Second waiver is to allow the project to exceed our maximum block size. Staff supports that waiver as well. There's a waiver to allow front yard parking for the gas station. Staff would need a little bit more info. There's some pieces of the code that could maybe apply and resolve this issue. So we'd like to see more info at the master stage of the review. There's a waiver to reduce the conserved tree canopy coverage from 10% to 5%. Staff's looking for a modification to the calculations where we render judgment. Again, all this is detailed in your staff report. And then waiving the requirements to exceed the maximum building length of 300, adding about 20 feet thereabouts, and we support that as well. So that's the reason for the PD, is because of the waivers. Next slide, please. This is the aerial of the site as it looks today. It is largely wooded and has been for quite a while. Up here at the front, the North Avenue side, there were some single family houses at one point. They've been gone for quite some time. We have the Piggly Wiggly Shopping Center to the north. Stroud Elementary is off screen to the east. You've got the Bray Street area. 4th Street is to your south. And then you've got Ruth Street coming across here. Commercial properties as you get closer to the loop. And a mix of residential and institutional uses below property. You can't see it on this aerial, but this part of the property is fairly flat and it slopes off pretty hard as you move to that point on the right. Next slide, please. This is the future land use map, currently zoned for general business. No changes needed to the future land use map. Next slide, please. And then this is the zoning map. It would convert from commercial general, which is what it is now, to commercial general plan development. Again, it's compatible with the map. This is a rendering of the site plan. Start with the North Avenue side here. North Avenue is the big road here on your left. You have a gas station with some parking. You have a multi-story, 5-story mixed-use building here. This is where your square footage of commercial is going to be along here. And then the other stories as you go up are going to be residential. This colored area is part of the plaza. And there's some over here that's also on site plan labeled as plaza. There's still some work to be done to get the plaza up to code, and also, you know, just to get to a design that we feel is going to be actually used by the public. But it is required by code. And then the back building here is purely residential, and there's some parking there. We have the stormwater in the very back. On the site plan, you'll see a potential connection in the future to the Piggly Wiggly Shopping Center if that got redeveloped. And then we have the street alignment here is proposed here because it satisfies the driveway separation requirements of our friends down in Transportation and Public Works. That's been a primary issue that the designers had to resolve over our months of conversing with them. It also aligns with Ruth Street to create an intersection. And then it helps the land trust out by providing them with a road that they can tie into. That was a rezone that you approved of last year. And they've had some access challenges. This is one way to help them out. Next slide, please. This is the architecture. This is the front building, the one that you would see as you're going past on North Avenue. We have on the left, this would be where the gas station canopy would be in front of the building. And then on the right here, this is going to come up to the to the street, creates a little bit of a framing effect. And that's a positive thing from an urban design standpoint. In the back of the building, next slide, please. It's going to look very similar. It's all residential. There's some parking tucked in on the back to take advantage of the grade. So you've got parking down here because there's a big slope. So you'll have this will be at grade here at the top, and that'll be first floor residential. And then as you go down, we have the parking tucked in. Next slide, please. And then this is the canopy. So that's the canopy that would be in front of the left half of the first building. Next slide. Summarizing our staff report, we find that the project is largely compatible with the 2023 comprehensive plan. Points in favor, it adds affordable housing, particularly because of its capital A affordable inclusion in our inclusionary zoning program. It's on an infill location. It's a node. both our comprehensive plan and our growth concept map, which we have presented to the mayor and commission as part of our future land use update, call for nodal development at this site. We're proposing the growth concept proposes a town center. So looking to go with some vertical development, a little bit more of an urban pattern and a little less suburban, so a little more intense, meant to serve this side of town and the residents there with a mix of commercial and residential. So this suits that nodal concept. It also promotes the interconnectivity by aligning with Ruth Street and Land Trust property. I'll touch a little bit more on the gas station here in a minute. It's compatible with our future land use and our zoning maps. There are some code compliance issues. The plaza in particular needs some redesign. There's some waivers largely supported by staff. We need a few more, a little more development on the other two, but we think we can work through these code compliance and waivers. The main question from staff perspective, and the one thing that we want to pitch to Planning Commission for discussion tonight, is the gas station. And there's three things to think about, three factors to think about when you think about the gas station. The first one is a gas station does create a conflict between the drivers. Gas stations are built for cars, and the people walking and biking along North Avenue, which is a place where the county is preparing to invest significant sums of money in upgrading the safety and accessibility of that corridor for people who are walking and biking. So conflict point there. On the other hand, the way this is designed is a very novel design for Athens. It's a much more urban format. We've never seen a gas station that's integrated into a multi-story residential project. And so that has reduced the footprint of the gas station. So it minimizes some of that conflict, and it adds second life potential for that structure. You may have seen around town that we have some old auto body shops, some old gas stations, and those bays and canopies are now, seating for restaurants. So this adds some second life potential to a building. Gas stations typically struggle with a second life, so that's a point in its favor here. The third factor is that this gas station is allowed by right here. So tomorrow, if the applicant so chose, they could submit permits just to build the gas station. It's allowed by right as long as you follow the code. There's your permit. You get none of the residences, none of the plaza, none of the other design stuff. So those are the three factors to think about as you weigh the trade-offs here. That's the main discussion from staff standpoint. We'd love to hear your input. Tonight is about comments only. It's a preliminary review. We'll get a master review. So tonight is a great opportunity to discuss all of the elements so that the applicant can incorporate that and you can see it at the master review, a final product that is more complete. So that concludes the staff.
Thank you, Stephen. This time, your opinion.
Good evening, David Ellison, on behalf of the property owner. The planning commission may recall this application, this property, we appeared before y'all in May 2023 meeting. You may recall that concept had the gas station, it had the drive-through restaurant, it had the townhomes in the back. It also had two full commercial access points on this particular site. Transportation Public Works objected to that layout because they were within 150 feet of a neighboring driveway. There were also concerns from staff and this body about the heavy auto-centric use for that particular site and general layout in general. So we get our application together and we realized when we're submitting again in 2023 that the traffic counts would require two access points. At that point in time, we're going to do one access point to this particular property. It's not aligned with Route Street. So we met with Transportation Public Works, we met with planning, kind of reconcile the difficulty of having a Transportation Public Works requirement for one access point and also within 150 feet, and planning's requirement for two access points due to the traffic count of this particular site. So the compromise was that we would have full commercial access in that private road across from Route Street, but then we'd have a right in, right out to serve the commercial point. And so we continue to work with staff over that summer, and then we decided to withdraw in September 2023 to rework the whole concept, to incorporate y'all's comments, staff comments, and do the inclusionary zoning. So that is what brings us to here today. And we believe this is a much better concept that was originally envisaged and what y'all originally saw in May 2023. We're requesting a number of waivers, and we're appreciative of the fact that staff supports 3 of these. To address 2 of them, one is regards to front yard parking. So we're going to look at staff's comments and see if we can address their, see if there are alternatives that we can do this by right under the code. The concern has been over the past 18 months of dealing with this site is that we move one, you try to solve one issue, another issue pops up. This is a very difficult site. Staff noted that the topography with a steep drop off the back. It's not shown on this site plan though, but you may recall that there is a Georgia Power transmission line easement from the south side of the property. It takes up to a half, 2/3 of the front. So we're having to address those 2 issues and just kind of, it's an awkwardly site shaped parcel. So we're gonna look at that, but our concern is that we move one thing, then something else comes up, or asking for a different waiver. Asking for that waiver because you could do this by right as a convenience store that's less than 2,500 square feet. And our proposed convenience store is 4,000 square feet. We also think the fact that there's other uses there, just the convenience store use would also justify that waiver. There's also the issue with the conserved tree canopy. You may recall that the original application sought an entire elimination of basically 0% conserved tree canopy. We're requesting 5%. And now we're able to satisfy the total required tree canopy requirements. Through all the itinerations of this particular site, the tree canopy has been one that we've not been able to satisfy. And I just think we have been able to do, been able to satisfy that requirement. So we asked for an open mind on those particular waiver requests. And because we really think this could be a beneficial project for the community. There's a reason why this property's been vacant for decades. And we're having something that advances many of the goals of the comp plan. We're adding commercial use to existing residential areas and within walking distance. We're adding affordable housing. And so we feel we're advancing to the important goals from the comp plan. We've been working on connectivity to adjoining parcels. I will note the fact that we're combining all these parcels into one inherently increases connectivity on this one parcel. But also we're working on clarifying the details on the nature of this road to the property to the southeast. We're working with Transportation Public Works on that property owner as to is that going to be a private road, public road, et cetera. That's something that we're still working on. But we feel confident that there's going to be some level of access. We have other portions where we could potentially get access to the shopping center and the school district to the east. Just maybe possibly in the future. The school district generally only wants one access point to their property. And we don't know what the shopping center, what they're willing to do. But, we're trying to put that out there to satisfy staff's objectives. This particular site has increased the plaza area, and that in the original site had very little of any plaza area, and we now have some of that. We also have additional green space as well. And so we generally think that this is a great improvement since the original plan. And also want to point out that this is in a tax allocation district, and this I think is the largest undeveloped parcel in this tax allocation district. And so if this property gets used, you're going to be increasing, it's going to benefit that entire TAD. So we request that you please eventually recommend our request. Again, we're going to look at everything that staff has said. And one other thing too, I know there's a lot before you in May, there was a lot of comments about the grant that North Avenue, that the county's received to address North Avenue. And the problem that we had is that even though we know the unified government is getting that money, There are no plans yet, so there's nothing that we can do to plan around that. But one thing that Transportation and Public Works has consistently said is they want alignment with Rue Street, and we have alignment with Rue Street. At the same time, get a second access point permitted right out to address the planning requirements for the traffic counts. I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have, but we think this is a marked improvement from where we were over a year ago. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ellison. Is there any member of the public who is here to speak in favor of this proposal? Is there any member of the public here to speak in opposition to this proposal? Okay, and we'll take it behind the rail and.
First of all, I'm really glad to have some input on this project in my last meeting. And partly it's because when you're younger, you have inviolable concepts about design. And this proposal does, reflect what I thought were inviolable comments, 20 years ago. They've been weakened for a long time, but I have to say, this is one of the best projects I've seen presented before this body. Honestly, I have no problems with anything they're asking for. I do appreciate David Sullivan, sorry, David. I appreciate his really great summary of how he got to where he is, because you can see how much work the applicant has done. And of course, personally, I'm really excited that he cited the inclusionary housing ordinance, because both Matt and I were at the birth of that, and all of us were involved in moving it forward. And I think hoped it would do a good thing for the community. And this is an example of the kind of thing. Even the gas station waiver. I mean, look what they did with the gas station. I didn't know you could make it look like that. And I'm just so excited for its location. And I don't have any questions about what y'all are going to do going forward. I just want you to know, and the applicant to know, that I have 110% support behind this.
Sarah.
I also really like the project, and I'm not, I'll kind of let the technical questions, I guess, to address maybe Stephen, some questions you brought up. I see what you mean about there being sort of conflict between the proposed north.
Sarah, can I just ask, the air conditioning feels especially loud tonight, and I see some people in the audience putting their hands together here. So can I just ask everyone to speak loudly when it is your turn to speak?
Like I did, Sarah.
I generally like the project, in addressing the questions, Stephen, I think that you indicated we should think about. I do understand it great with the auto-oriented use with the gas station. That just needs to be planned for. I mean, North Avenue is a multimodal corridor that hopefully is going to become even better with time. And so I think that I'm not too hung up on that conflict. The one note I made about the project, it does kind of seem like it's a technicality why, if I understood the applicant correctly, that the way that the tree canopy is calculated doesn't really give them credit for some trees they are conserving, but whatever, I guess really what I want to say is I'm okay with that. But the thing I really think that, I mean, there's a lot of things that this accomplishes, but one of the big things is that Ruth Street extension. And, the transportation note in our staff report says that the city, that the street does not meet government standards and must remain private, as it will only serve one parcel. That's not true. It will serve, I mean, remember that the Brace Street rezone is for, I think, 48, 42, so like a bunch of affordable housing. And giving a second access point to that lot is a huge benefit. So I don't know how many parcels a street has to serve to then be able to qualify as a public street. But I think that should be a public street, and without knowing what those minimums are, I just think that's actually one of the nicest things about this design, is the way that it's going to really help give access to those other parcels. And so anyway, maybe staff can kind of tell me what the rule is. Is it that it has to serve 4 or more parcels to be public, or maybe we don't know, but it's just something to think about, maybe.
So I can answer that. My name is Kyle Dalton. I'm a land development coordinator with Transportation and Public Works. The main reason it would have to remain private at the moment is because of its dead-end nature. If it were to continue at some point and spread out and go to other parcels and continue through and make a full thoroughfare, it could become a public street as long as it's built to public standards. If we were to require it to be built to public standards at the moment, it would require a cul-de-sac or a hammerhead turnaround at the end of it, which would encroach on space that they need for other things.
So if the developer were to build it as a private street, could it eventually become a public street?
Yes, as long as it's built to public standards, it can remain a private street and be built to public standards, and then later on become a public road.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
I think that's all I had about this one.
Good comments. I guess I had a few. I agree with what Alice said. I think this is a really great project, and I appreciate the applicant's redesign. I think we've seen it a couple times before. We've made comments, and I think this reflects a really thoughtful bunch of improvements over the first version that I remember seeing. And I think all this additional residential on North Avenue will, as the applicant said, support the North Avenue redesign and the TAD and all the federal grant and all the improvements that we expect to happen in the coming years on North Avenue. Having more people living there means more people who can go to restaurants and stuff like that. So I think it's good for the city for a lot of reasons. One of which is it's a big improvement to that parcel and may help kind of kickstart some other activity on North Avenue. And another is, I think I've said this at previous meetings, we need more housing in Athens.
I thought it's already tattooed on your forehead then.
This provides a great deal of it, and I commend the applicant for opting into our voluntary inclusionary zoning program. I think that's great to see, and this is really a home run for our inclusionary zoning ordinance to get 20% of these units permanently affordable. And as far as the gas station goes, I mean, the fact that they can do it as of right, I hear the staff point about there's more vehicular traffic, any kind of drive-in business creates points of conflict for pedestrians and cyclists, but North Avenue is a busy street. There's a lot of cars driving on North Avenue, and they can build a gas station as of right. So I don't think that this is worse than what they can do as of right. In fact, I think it's a lot better. This is a less auto-centric design than many gas stations in town. And so I appreciate that on the applicant's part. I did have a question about the driveway width, not the road, but just the right turn in, right turn out driveway. What is the width there? Do you know, Mr. Ellison?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know that with all the meetings with Transportation Public Works, I think we're doing whatever they're willing to give us.
Okay, I guess maybe TPW, perhaps what if they just built the gas station as of right? How big could the driveway be? And is this a narrower driveway than that, or is this kind of maxed out to like?
To be honest, I not know. The maximum width on the driveway as measured at the ends of the neighbors on the inside of the property would be 36 feet wide at maximum. That's what our code allows for. But
That would be the maximum if they just went in with an as of right proposal?
with anything, any type of development that's commercial, industrial, or anything like that, they all have the same maximum limits.
Okay, and you don't know, do you, from the meetings you've had with them, what the width of this, because this is a right in, right out, it appears narrower to me.
To be honest, I haven't actually been in any of the meetings for this particular development. Looking at it, that looks like it's going to be at a maximum allowable width. They do get a little bit of extra leeway because it will be a right in, right out only driveway. And that's greatly enhanced for safety and everything.
Okay, The reason I'm asking these questions, and I'll say this for the applicant, just this is a comment meeting and this may be useful to you. As far as the point of conflict between cyclists and pedestrians and vehicular traffic entering, exiting the parcel, wide driveways, I come by the intersection of Finley and Prince a lot. And there's a Wendy's and a Captain D's there, and they have unbelievably wide driveways that, and you get people turning left across traffic and gunning it because they're worried about somebody bearing down on them and entering those properties. And sometimes there's people pushing strollers across those driveways, and it's kind of dangerous. And so I would encourage the applicant to look hard at the driveway width that you need, and to the extent that you're able to bring it in under what you'd be allowed to do as of right. I think that's going to help reduce staff's concerns and anyone else's concerns about points of conflict between pedestrian and cyclist activity and people entering the gas station. So to the extent that the needs of, gas station entry and exit allow you to shrink the driveway a little and make it kind of more urban, which you're doing in a lot of other design ways here, I would just encourage you to please do that. And maybe next time we see this, if you guys are able to tell me, exactly how wide the driveway is, I'll ask the question again. But I just wanted to put that out there for y'all. Thank you. That's all that I have. Any other comments or questions? Sarah?
I have a question for the applicant. If you have the answer to this. Looking at the building B back elevation. So there's the part that's below grade. Yeah. I was just looking at it, thinking about just the experience of that back parking lot and what it's like. On this, on these maps, or these elevations, what does open mean and what does drive mean?
Are you talking about the, are you looking at PD 20?
Page A1.01 at the bottom.
Yeah. Or up there, the gray blocks at the very top.
Okay, I don't know.
Huh?
I don't know.
That's okay.
What is your concern? I'm happy to address.
I'm just, I guess, with the drive, it's more a curiosity than concern, like, is that covered parking of some kind? What's going on there? And I guess the open is less of a question. I assume it'd be something through stairs and elevators, but drive is really, what's happening back here?
I'll get an answer for you. We're back here again.
Thank you.
I'll just say, and this may be, Carlson can correct me later, but if you look at HPD 20 and you look at that parking lot behind building B, you can see that there's a driveway closer to the right and a driveway closer to the left that enter into the parking underneath the building in that subsurface parking. So
I guess I can see some kind of faint lines.
They've shaded in parking.
Yeah, super faintly. Huh. Oh, there it is. 45 parking spaces. Yeah, that is. Huh.
there's 45 parking spaces underneath the building, and there's 2 points of entry or exit
Yeah.
shown on the driveway plan.
All right. I think that answers that question.
Sarah?
Okay. That's my whole question. So thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Question about if the applicant is, I noticed this when we were looking at PD 20, the dog part is labeled. And if the applicant labels this dog park and the PD goes through, do they have to have it be a dog park forever? So I guess my question would be for staff, like, is there a way? I think if I were the applicant, I wouldn't necessarily want to be held to that forever, and I'm wondering if there's a way to like use a more general green-ish amenity term there. I don't even know if the applicant would want that. It just seems like something to think about maybe is whether that's such a very specific use to add to a PD, I think. It's really what it's.
Sure. Yeah, a more general term might be best there. I would say that if this came back in and that went from a dog park to a playground, administrative approval.
You could just do it. Yeah,
Very reasonable option there.
okay.
I can't think of what change might occur other than structures going in that would require them to come back before the board. Recreational opportunities generally swap fairly easily.
Okay, you don't have to come back through this whole thing, generally.
Generally not.
Okay,
So if they labeled it as outdoor recreation area, then they make it a dog park, but later if nobody had dogs and they wanted to do something different, they could, if they used a more general term in the PD without even having to seek administrative.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we have the outdoor recreation requirements in the code. So it doesn't specify about dog park. It does talk about play areas a little bit. That can be done in a variety of ways. We talked about that a little bit with like Micah's Creek and some of the creativity they did there. So.
Alex, you next.
Yeah, I kind of wish I had more negative to hand out to help guide you. I like the height. I think it's nice on that road to have something that's not just floors high. That's something with the future land use we're looking into is where to grow, how to grow, and up is one of the directions. I also like, and with Steven saying he hasn't seen, or the office hadn't really seen this, how the gas station is cloaked a little bit. I think it might turn out to be a little bit of an example to others that if you want something, just get a little more creative and you can see how to hide sometimes what's considered the ugliness of something. And I've seen structures like this in other cities, and it is nicer. It definitely doesn't stand out as gas station as a lot of other ones would if you didn't have that wing going across there. So I commend them on that, and I think that may lead to more example of ways to kind of hide some of the things.
Any other comments? Yeah. All right. That item. Thank you, Mr. Elson. And that brings us to item 2, your new business on the agenda, which is 215 Shady Brook Drive. Item number zone -2024-0509. I knew it.
All right. So we've got a rezone here at 215 Shady Brook. This is a requested rezone from RS8 to RM1. Rezones come with a non-binding site plan. This is a conceptual site plan, although the applicant has suggested that they would offer up to bind this plan if this body so chose. They are looking at a connection through the Willow Mist neighborhood, which is accessed off of Seagraves Drive. Seagraves Drive becomes private when you cross the creek and get into the Willow Mist section. The front section that is just some other residential is a public street that connects to Lexington Road. The applicant is also offering up a proposed future connection through the Lakewood Planned Development, which is accessed off of Barnett Shoals Road, and is a planned development that started in the early 2000s, has had some development in it, and is seeking to reactivate the portions that would eventually hopefully connect up with the property you'll see this evening. Again, non-binding, but they're looking at 60 detached dwellings, a clubhouse, a play area, and an overlook, because there's lots of beautiful nature out here and lots of topography on this site. So they're also offering up a nature trail that would follow the creek bed along this property, which is on the western and northern borders of the project. The Greenway Network Plan has a connection through this area of the county. And they're stating that this could be the possible future connection. They're just building it to a trail standard for now, but it could be a placeholder for future possibilities. So you can see the property here. That's Lexington Avenue to the top of the screen there. The loop just to the east is the Willow Mist duplex development. If you were out visiting the site, you may have drove down there. There's a small connection point in the Willow Mist subdivision that is right here that you'll see on your plan. Also on the site plan, the applicant is offering up to connect here on the northern portion that would cut between two of the current duplexes that are over there. The planned development that is behind is Lakewood. You can see a little bit of Lake Dequel here. You can see just a tiny bit of the Edgewater portion, which is the early part of the development. And then we have on this site would be the Atlas Athens. A lot of people may have known that as Trinitas. We've got Shady Brook Drive that looks to go right into the site here, but there's a large creek and topographical change here. Then we've got a mix of other multifamily that feeds out onto Gaines School Road from this site. So the future land use is traditional neighborhood for this. Traditional neighborhood works for the RM1 zoning, so they're not asking to change the future land use. You can see additional traditional neighborhood around and then a little bit of mixed density there to the northwest. Zoning wise, RS8 to RM1, you can see the RS8 up front and then also the additional RM1 property that surrounds a lot of this. Willow Mist being zoned RS8, but functioning fairly adequately in the RM capacity. And then you'll see the Lakewood development, which is the CNPD development here to the south and west. So sorry, I tried to splice two images here because our aerial photography is right on the edge here of this property. I kind of wanted to show, and just for the record, our aerial topography doesn't show this parcel, but the cut is right through here. So just in case this looks a little bit different, I think that's New Hampshire, maybe Vermont. I'm not sure which shape that is, but we're only part of that. Wanted to point out, and it's a little bit hard to see, but you can sort of see through shadows. We have a huge amount of topography on this portion of the site. And you'll see on the site plan that the applicant is proposing to keep the development in concept up here on top. It would be very, very hard to develop here. That's also where Shady Brook connects in. So if you're kind of looking at why is this trying to connect through Seagraves, that has a lot to do with it. You can then sort of continue to see the fall as it goes down here into Lake Dequel and down here towards Barnett Shoals if you've been out that way. So here is the concept plan. You can see the two connections to Seagraves Drive. This is the parcel that has, it actually currently has a maintenance shack on it, but it was reserved to have connection through to this site. And then here would be the second connection, a few cul-de-sacs. We have an alley serving a bit of this. Staff would love to see more alley if they can get it in here. I think this block could benefit from having an alley in here, just to get with some of our design standards that we're looking at. And then the connection here would be a future connection to the Lakewood development. We're hopeful that development will come back before this body very soon, but even if that does move forward, the connection to here would be the last phase of the Lakewood development. So it's a little bit off into the future. You can see the trail connection there through the creek bed. And then following along, this is where Shady Brook is. So if you kind of see all these topo lines that are right through here, you can see the change that goes on. So this is Shady Brook, very expensive opportunity. The applicant looked at that originally to make the connection into here, but that is a hefty connection and would be handed over to our Transportation and Public Works Department, which is a liability we don't exactly want to take on. Overlook would be right here on the cul-de-sac. They're showing a bit of a play area here. They've got a clubhouse down here in this portion of the site. So staff is recommending this to be tabled. The applicant, you'll see some of the conditions, and I'm sorry I did not put them on the screen here with the request from staff to table this. Two of the conditions are about connection. Second point of access is required by code, And then the second point that they're showing to Lakewood, we're asking to have that done or else not be able to follow through with this project. So the applicant has hurried up and got their application in to attend the hearings board to try and address that situation. As you can see, we're hoping that that future connection is there, but that connection is not currently there. And this applicant and owner would like to get going with the property sooner than that. So applicant appreciates the infill nature of this project. We appreciate some of the housing supply. We've seen a version of this with some different housing on it. This shows 60 cottages per the staff report. As you guys have heard with many of our housing cases over the past few years, we're looking for variety in there. So maybe one point to discuss that we would like to see a little bit more of. It is compatible with the future land use map, the zoning map, and the ordinances otherwise. But as I mentioned, we're looking for the applicant to address that second point of access, which they're in the process of, and we'd like to give them the time to do that. So that's why staff is recommending the table. And with that, I will conclude the staff report.
Thank you, Mark. This time we'll hear from the applicant.
Thank you. My name's Ken Bell of Bell and Company, and I'm a landscape architect. Bell and Company is a land planning, landscape architectural and civil engineering firm established in 1985. We were in Athens for about 9 years and moved out to Oconee County near the Paul Brown Parkway, Highway 316 for another 9 to 10 years. And now we've moved out a little further out Highway 316. But I'm glad to be here and able to speak to you all. Am I speaking loud enough?
No.
You heard?
No.
Okay. I seem to have that problem. Could you tell me where the pointer is on here? Okay. I'm glad you left this up because I was going to ask you to pull this up so that I could speak from it. Mark took away 75% of what I had to say. So I'll be as brief as I can. I just wanted to give you, Mark gave you kind of an overview of the history since Mr. Kittle became involved in the project. The project was owned by Duncan family. Notice Mr. Duncan and others are here this evening. When we originally looked at this property, it appeared as though because the Shady Brook Drive right-of-way extended all the way from Lexington Road, all the way down to the creek. Now, the creek itself is the right edge of that green area. The right edge of the green area is the property line, the boundary line of the subject property, and that is also where the creek is. And so the address is 215, I think 215 or 212 Shady Brook Drive, but the road Shady Brook Drive does not extend to the property. Only the right-of-way extends to the property. The road itself, where Shady Brook ends, is about 140 feet up the hill, above the creek, above the floodplain, above the environmental buffers, and what have you. And so we looked at accessing the property from the Shady Brook frontage and looked into ways to cross the creek, met with Ronnie Katrib on multiple occasions about different types of bridges that could be used in that context, and then presented a plan through the zoning process that actually illustrated a bridge crossing the creek at one time. After staff reviewed that plan, they came back with a recommendation of denial, primarily because Public Works Department, after their evaluation of having to deal with the maintenance of the bridge, decided that that was not the route that they would prefer us to go. They didn't say we couldn't do it, but they asked us if we would look at a different alternative to that, which we did. Another reason why the project didn't go forward was the ACC Public Utilities Department and their comments about the rezone made a statement that there was no water availability for the site at that point in time. And that there was no sewer capacity available at that point in time. So since the recommendation was denial, we decided to table that project, hoping that we would have time to deal with those issues. Well, the Public Utilities Department made that comment because although they had plans for installing an 8-inch water line in Shady Brook Drive, which we planned to tie to, it wasn't done when we turned in the rezone request. And so, and it wasn't going to be done until this year, 2004. And I'm happy to say that within the last month and a half, that 8-inch water line has been installed all the way to the end of the pavement in Shady Brook. And so we are now in this plan showing our water system tying into and creating a loop system from the Willow Mist project, which is owned also by Mr. Kittle, who's the developer of this property. So there will be a loop system that ties in from Shady Brook over to the Seabrook water line that's just been installed. So we were a little ahead in our timing with this first zoning submittal. And frankly, we still are a little ahead of where we thought we were, which is why we're asking that you not act on this evening, so that we can again take care of another issue that has revealed itself. We thought we had addressed it. We thought that we had fully satisfied the Transportation and Public Works Department. And I still think that we have done that at this point in time with this plan, but we haven't totally satisfied the planning department with this plan because we didn't ask for a variance. And although we are showing 2 driveways from Seagraves Drive, which satisfies the single driveway. There's something in the Athens-Clarke County Code that says if you have over 250 average daily trips, then you need 2 points of access. I think it specifically says 2 driveways. Well, we do have 2 driveways. So if you look at it in that context, we do have 2 points of access, but I don't think we have 2 points of access similar to in the last project, 2 points of access that can meet the qualifications of a public street if it ever has to be upgraded to a public street. The one that is on the left of the plan from Seagraves Drive is within a 50-foot right of way. All of the roads can be designed to meet all of the county standards, which means that these could in fact become county roads in the future. The one access to the right that goes to the what looks like the cul-de-sac is actually a roundabout on the lower right-hand portion of the drawing. We couldn't get a 50-foot right of way in the space that was there without raising generating a $250,000 rental income building. So we've got a 30-foot right of way, which doesn't meet the requirements of being able to be upgraded to a 50-foot right of way. So that is the thing we thought we had resolved, but we don't. So we're taking the time to request a variance. So that issue, we're trying to resolve all issues so y'all are comfortable with voting on the plan when it comes back for a voting action. Mr. Kittle is here this evening. He's happy to speak and to answer any questions that you may have. I think there are some people from the neighborhood. Mr. Kittle actually got active early on in the rezone request and met with residents of Shady Brook on more than one occasion. And he heard what they had to say, hoping that we wouldn't be doing anything that would be creating additional traffic through their subdivision. So by abandoning that idea of accessing through Shady Brook, I think the people that were here to speak about that are going to speak favorably, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm happy to take any questions. Mr. Kittle is here to speak. There are others here to speak, and I'll make myself available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keel. If we do have questions after we've heard public comment, we'll ask you or Mr. Kittle to step back up.
Thank you.
At this time, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there any member of the public here wishing to speak in favor of this application?
I just have a question when you're ready for that.
Okay, if, I see a hand behind you who wants to speak in favor, so ma'am, step up to the podium.
I'm Tess Cunningham. I own 2 properties on Shady Brook. And of course, our concerns were the bridge and creating that as a thoroughfare when Mr. Kittle first was entertaining using Shady Brook. And when he reconstructed the design, and he was very gracious in taking our comments and also, listening to our concerns. I really thank you for that. He heard us. And so this new design, I can say I and a few of the other neighbors that weren't able to be here today thought that this was a good idea. Even though it has the Shady Brook designation, because I know that the former owners had to give it some address, and it did touch, although not the street, but it did touch the neighborhood. Would that, I have a question, would that change with the outlets now going into Seagraves? And I can address that, but I just wanted to ask that. My mail carrier wanted to know too. He says, oh my God, that'd be my route. So he said, find out, Tess. So I told him I would. And then the other thing is, supposedly this is non-binding. Does that mean that you're just trying to still get your ducks in a row to see if all of this will work? And what if it doesn't? Then could other considerations be proposed, and would we be apprised of that? That was my concern and the other people that I was representing today. So that was it. Other than that, we really appreciated his redesign and appreciation also about conserving the trees and the quietness, not being a big thoroughfare coming through there. That's always been a very quiet neighborhood, and we appreciated that fact that he was going to maintain that and kind of be a good steward of that, because we need our trees. We just lost with Trinitas behind us, so this would have been a big devastation to us. So we appreciated that. So I was speaking in favor of that. Thanking Mr. Kittle for taking all that into consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Cunningham. Mark, are we able to, from the staff's perspective, address the question about either the street address changing or the non-binding plan and what that means?
Sure, yeah, we'll have a whole addressing scheme for the development if this plan is what ends up coming through. So yeah, the streets will all get names and those addresses will be pulled off of those streets. I guess there will be some common area around this property still from the way I see it. This is actually sort of a condo arrangement. That's part of why the RM request is being done. So there will still be one underlying parcel there. We generally do not change those. This not having a resident on it, not having to change someone's address, I'm sure could get a new address if it was at that time. I don't actually personally deal with the addressing of that, but that all goes through the administrative process. The non-binding nature staff is asking is because it's not code compliant. So that's why we've asked it not to be binding. That's what the applicant and the owner are trying to address in the variance process. So how that process goes could change staff's determination on that going forward. However, we make a recommendation to you all deliberate, make a recommendation that goes to the mayor and commission. So there's other opportunities for that to be in flux a little bit, I'd say.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that for the audience's benefit, a non-binding site plan is something we often see by an applicant who wants to retain flexibility to, if there's a great big rock or something and they need to move one of the houses 4 feet, a binding site plan makes it hard for them to make adjustments as they get closer to construction. And a binding site plan, often requires them to come back through this process again to amend the binding site plan. And so that's, it's not uncommon that we would see that, but there are this body could recommend to the mayor and commission that they make the site plan binding, Or the mayor and commission could simply decide to make the site plan binding if they thought that that was a good idea for any reason. But at this moment, the site plan is submitted as non-binding, to my understanding, although the applicant, I think I heard staff say that they were willing to bind this site plan if that seemed important to the mayor and commission. So that's a matter that's not final.
There's also aspects we can bind that we've done before, like we did on Newton Bridge. We bound areas of disturbance. We bound number of units. So there are other aspects if that would help out one way or the other with this body or the public or the mayor and commission as well.
Yeah, you can bind certain aspects, but not others. Right. Okay. Is there any other member of the public here to speak in support of this application?
I guess I would. You want to go?
Oh, go ahead first.
Okay. All right, I'm Ronnie Kelly. I'm actually the applicant that owns the property. I'm basically from Athens, been here all my life. 2 months, I'll be 70 years old. So I've been building and developing property for 49 years. I'm not retired. I'm basically tired. One of the main reasons we got this piece of property is, you know, going across over to Shady Brook in the creek, we got prices as much as $3 million to put a bridge in. It had to be such a long span. We couldn't even put culverts or anything like that. So we met with Ronnie, Police, Public Utilities, and by rights, we could go over Shady Brook, but he asked us to look other ways, and we started looking, and basically we came up with, besides the Deeple property, we came up with the two entrances that, since I own Willow-Miss, I built it back 40 years ago. So it's 1984 to now. I've owned and maintained and managed it 40 years. So probably got why I got a lot of gray hair. So one of the reasons why I asked Ken, could we change a couple of things? We went from RS8 to RM1 and basically wanted to condo this thing. And we could put duplexes over there, but since I own 45 duplexes, I wanted to put houses. I kind of see a vision over there of what this place could look. So we went to the RM1 only, where I wanted to put the houses where I could move a house here or there, wouldn't be any property lines, because we wanted to condo it. I want to try, I'm one of the few property builders and developers that likes trees. And, you know, if we have a 100-year-old oak tree and I need to move a house 15 to 20 feet away from it to put the next one down, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go with the RM1 zoning. I think that we had a couple of meetings with the homeowners on Shady Brook. I think the first time we met, we had several different plans. I think the first time was actually, I think, going across the creek, the Shady Brook. And basically I didn't like it. Nobody else liked it. And we had I think one commissioner was there. Then the second time we met, I knew that they were gonna like this because we wasn't gonna touch Shady Brook. And I believe 2 county commissioners was there. I think everybody liked the plan. I think Ronnie Patrice at Public Utilities really liked it. And we met with Brad several times and he liked it. And, you know, we met with the Deacle property, it's under contract. We met with those guys a couple of times. I think they're pretty far off. So I think that, you know, they plan on coming in with a planned unit development pretty soon to modify that.
Thank you.
But got any questions?
Thank you. Your time's expired, but if we have additional questions, we may call you back up.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Is there any other member of the public here wishing to speak in favor of this application? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Lynn Faust. I live on Shady Brook Drive. One of the concerns against doing this was the density of the housing. I know we need housing in Athens. I spent all day today volunteering with Habitat, but I appreciate, especially if it's going to be tied in with the Greenway at the future the way Mr. Kittle's developing it to leave the trees and to leave a lot of the natural would be very beneficial also to the greenway. It just makes common sense to me. So, and I think we need housing, but we also need natural environment for everybody's well-being in the community. That's just, I appreciate him listening to us, and I wrote you all a letter, so I hope you'll read that, and I won't re-talk it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Faust. Is there any other member of the public here wishing to speak in favor of this application?
I had one question, or do I need to wait? Because I.
Until everyone's, we'll recognize you before we take it.
Okay.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this application? And ma'am, in the front row, I recall you said you had a question. Would you like to step up to the podium?
It was about the first one. I forgot that they were off. That's on the North Avenue.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
my apologies.
Well, I've had a lot of problems hearing. I could hear, but I'm one of these, have one of
Ma'am,
these school teacher voices.
Ma'am, step up to the podium if
Okay.
you're gonna.
My name is,
Did I understand correctly? You have a question, but it's not about this.
it's about the North Avenue.
Okay, I guess, since you're at the podium, go ahead and ask it. We may not be able to address it until.
Well, it's, all right. I'm Christine Peredny. My house is right across the street from this development. It is an 1891 house that we've had for 100 years. And I just wondered if this is going to impact it any, because it's right on the side of Bruce Street.
Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to suggest that you stick around to the end of the meeting and I'll be happy to talk with you. I'm sure.
Well, that's great.
Judge.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, let's do that.
That's fine.
Stick with the item that's currently on the agenda. And Ms. Cunningham, I understand you have one more comment.
Yeah, one,
Step up to the podium.
oh. When you talked about, tapping into our water line, our water line went from this to this. We're real happy. We're all pretty happy. We're still getting the bugs out. But, you mentioned about, tying in a loop to maybe use that water line to go back there. Would that impact us in any way? Is that adequate? Because we've had a few issues, but I don't know that much about water and the way it flows, but is that something that is on the agenda, or is that something that they definitely want to do now that we've gotten our new water line in?
Mark, are you able to comment?
The very briefly and very broadly, so the Public Utilities Department will examine it, assuming everything goes forward. If that all happens, the Public Utilities will be examining all that. A looping water system is what they want. So yeah, it wouldn't decrease anything to my knowledge from you all. It's a pressurized system. It's about double checks essentially. But yeah, they'll be required to meet all the standards that the Public Utilities Department requires.
We're really grateful we got that in. And the crew was awesome to work with.
That's great. Is there any other member of the public here wishing to comment on this proposal?
Can I go up again?
Ms. Faust, yes, welcome back.
Sorry, I don't know that I was clear. So I know the density was a question, negative for him. So I was just trying to say the natural, he's keeping it, the density is lower because of the environment that he's trying to keep intact. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Faust. Are there any other members of the public wishing to comment? At this time, the applicant is entitled to 2 minutes to address any issues that were raised during public comment.
Just a couple of things. Mr. Kittle never wanted to change the zoning for the purpose of increasing the density of the project. The reason for asking for the RM1 classification, which is a multifamily classification, is, under the RS8 classification, he would have to mass grade the site. That mass grading is not a requirement of RM1 property. It is a requirement of RS8 properties. And this project was too sensitive for that type of development. Concerning the binding site plan, when the project was originally turned in, there were some attached, the density was higher. I want to say it was in the 80 unit range. But again, the purpose of rezoning the property was not really to get higher density. We dropped the density down to 60 units, which is even lower than what you could achieve in the RS8, dividing it into single family lots. So I just wanted to call those 2 points to your attention. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Beal. At this time, we'll bring it back behind the rail and Sarah.
Motion to table. A second.
Motion to table by Sarah, second by Kristen. I understand the applicant and staff have some issues to discuss about that. Let me just ask a question. I think we do that, right? We have a second. And so discussion of the motion. Is there any thing, and this is a question for staff and or the applicant, anything that you need from us in the way of feedback at this meeting on it? And let me ask both Mark and Mr. Beal to address that before we go.
We're in kind of a unique situation with the issue, the procedural issue that's going to give some time. So we had this on the agenda. The applicants and the owner wanted to proceed and get some feedback. So if you all have any feedback like we do on a preliminary phase of a plan development, now would be the time. We, on the staff side, will be working through technical issues. So, you know, we wouldn't be going back and asking for changes to anything else at this point. We've put all those in the staff report we think are necessary.
Thank you. And I wanted the applicant to address that question, and then I'll.
Just a question. The petitioner was hoping that this would just be a 30-day table. So,
is that, yeah, do we need to specify in the motion that the length of time for the tabling, or?
It would be helpful. Yeah.
Okay, so our next meeting happens to be in 21 days because our July meeting is moved up because of the holiday. So a 30-day table would put it on the August meeting. Is that right?
I don't know if you're saying don't do anything for 30 days or do it within 30 days. I don't exactly know which one's being
how
asked.
Sarah answers that question.
Yeah.
Sarah, what is the nature of the table that you're using?
I was proposing table to the next meeting.
To the meeting in 21 days.
Yes, unless that won't be enough time.
The deadline is already passed. It had to be August.
Okay, then the next possible meeting. Table to the next possible meeting.
Okay.
Should be August 1st.
Alice, you had a hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just because this is the time for comment. This is obviously, from my point of view, a no-brainer. Based on what we've heard tonight, I did want to, do what I'm sure a lot of y'all are thinking is extend my appreciation to Ken Beal as always for working so hard and so well with our government to make these kinds of positive changes happen. Someone mentioned housing issues, and in my mind, technically this is needed at all levels. So I don't have a problem with that. Also, in the balance, the conservation of green space is more important in this context to me anyway. So again, I don't have any inviolable principles, except doing something evil. And this is far from that. So I just needed to say that it is my last meeting. So I will vote yes.
Yeah.
So the issue with the street on the right is the issue that it's not wide enough to technically be a public street right now?
The two connection points that are shown here down to Seagraves are to a private street. The connection is only out to Seagraves, which only has a single point of access onto Lexington. So we're looking at a neighborhood of duplexes and the neighborhood of cottages. So the neighborhood of cottages alone gets well over 250 daily trips. The neighborhood of cottages and the neighborhood of duplexes adds more.
So if the neighborhood is exiting onto a private street, I guess, I mean, how do we solve this issue of like the two different access points? Because I thought the issue was like there needed to be a second public access.
So they're looking to ask for a variance.
Okay, because would be my point, was like, I would be okay with a narrower street
Okay.
going into the subdivision.
So the second point of access is what's circled in red there, but that's once Lakewood gets.
Yeah.
So that's the request. And to the applicant's point, hopefully that's only a temporary need because that connection will be made in the future.
Potentially.
Second access point is also only for fire. It's only for emergency access.
Is it gated?
How do you restrict that?
Gate, a gate.
I mean, it had to be gated.
I didn't see anything in the report. The applicant might address that. Do you know if the second access point on the Seagraves is intended to be gated, or is it just?
It was not intended to be gated, and it was just, it was labeled just for emergency vehicles. But it would have to be gated actually for it to only be for emergency vehicles. Because they would have an access to it, but no one else would.
Yeah.
I had a question about, I was listening to what the owner said about wanting to retain flexibility to place the houses, you know, to not be totally bound to where the houses go based upon trees, et cetera. So in this scenario, though, if we were to eventually recommend approval with this as a binding site plan, does that actually take that away because those building footprints are on there? Or would we have the ability to have the sort of layout of the plan be the binding site plan with giving them flexibility as to where they place the condos?
Yeah, I mean, as we were sort of discussing a little bit, there are different ways you could bind it.
Okay.
Find certain aspects of it. So yeah, that would be up to this board. So if you like the number of units, you could recommend that. If you like the street layout, I don't
Okay.
know from the applicant standpoint, from an engineering standpoint, if they do need some flexibility on that. But yeah, I mean, there are aspects of that you could bind to keep the spirit of what's being shown here and also still allow some flexibility.
Did you have something you wanted to say to that?
Yeah, I'd like to, the main thing we wanted to do is make sure that the houses are condo. That means there's no lot lines, period, where we could move the houses either way. One of the other reasons on one of the condos, we won't have, the homeowners association wants to have folk cut the grass. One kiosk for the mailboxes and one place for the trash, no trash cans, stuff like that.
Yeah,
You know,
okay, great.
Same thing we're doing in the Willow Mist. We try to keep it all clean.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So we could, for instance, just bind the developed area as shown on the site plan as binding, but allow them to move buildings around and roads as necessary a little bit, or we could bind the roads, or
Yes.
we could get as granular as I think as we want.
So we could address that when it comes back next time. Yeah, okay.
And just to refresh everyone, that we did a limits of disturbance bind on the Newton Bridge project, if you all remember that.
And that was phrased as a condition. So that's how it would go in the ordinance, there'd be certain conditions. Okay.
And from that experience, we'd like you all to be as precise as possible if you go that route.
All right, any further discussion of the motion? Should we do voice vote or roll call? Motion to table.
I think we can voice this one.
Okay, the motion is a motion to table it to the next meeting that it can be scheduled for. And motion by Sarah, second by Kristen. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Let me just say thank you to the members of the public that came to speak. It is our experience that being opposed to a project is more motivating. And so it's more often the case that even if a neighborhood is split 50-50, the no's come out and speak and the yeses don't. And so it was a breath of fresh air to see some neighbors come out to say that they support, appreciate the project. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the new business section of our agenda for tonight. And proceeding to the other business section. Item 1 is the Planning Commission Chair's report. The chair has no report. Second, future land use steering committee report. Alex?
Yes, we had our second meeting a couple of weeks ago in May, and we tackled our first look at the outskirts of the county, the green belt as we know it, and how to potentially grow into it, and what areas we may see as a steering committee to maybe be a little more off limits, what area we can, including, just as an example, not to necessarily be officially said here, but even going up North Avenue as we go higher up in there, areas that may appear on the old maps as more of a urban and now, or rural, sorry. They're just little, we're learning they're little areas and pockets we might be able to steer the growth into, which is nice. It went so well that the 2-hour meeting, 2-hour long meeting went over 2.5 hours, and we didn't finish. And so we're gonna go back to another subject at the next meeting, and then we're gonna circle back around to this and see if we can push the balloon one way or the other there. So basically, we're on our way.
Planning director's report.
So our planning director officially retires tomorrow, and Bruce Lonnie has been named the interim director. He'll begin that role on Monday. So going forward, Steve and I are always available for questions and comments, but I know some are a little above our pay grade, so please send those to Bruce.
Do you have updates on the things we saw last time that they've been acted on?
Yeah, so almost everything passed. Actually, everything went the way you guys selected in May. The SAE house, the 247 Pulaski Street, there is a question about the sidewalk variance that they asked for. They're looking to have that variance applied for certain portions of the development. Most of that portion that they would like to have, and Commissioner Allison Wright is supposed to get back to us tomorrow or first thing next week. They're wanting to use the sidewalk next to the AT&T building on Reese and then cut over to where the property is. And then the sidewalk would wrap around Newton Street from there. So they're looking to amend that variance a little bit. So that will actually be on a special called meeting next Friday. So that was tabled for a few days. Everything else went the way you all voted from May. And just so you all are aware, one more point about that. State got rid of the 6-month hold on halfway houses. So we had the one from 6 months ago, Peach Street, and then we also had the Henderson Extension one that you all heard in May. Both of those went through, and both of those were approved. Bit of a change there and some positive news.
Great, thank you.
So I apologize. I believe you guys actually recommended denial on one of those and then came back and unanimously recommended approval of the other one. But I think the sentiment was there.
And I see also on your copy of the agenda, which I stole from you at the outset of the meeting, that you had added officer election under the planning director section. Do you want to?
Yeah, so we do technically are having the meeting in June. And so the officers would not be officers until August, but with the full body here, we can certainly do that now if you all would choose.
Well, yeah, you put it on the agenda, so I'd say we can.
Okay.
And that's kind of what the bylaws require too. Reading.
So you're the chair. It's a little awkward for you to announce anything, but would you like to continue? You have the opportunity to serve for one more year as the chair under the bylaws.
Unless someone wants to arm wrestle me for it, I'm happy to do it one more year.
Motion to make Matt chair again for one more.
Second. Second.
Would not win arm wrestle. Not my choices.
Was that Sarah's answer?
Yes.
All those in
All
favor?
in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We need a vice chair.
Good thing you do it.
Yeah, so we do need a vice chair.
Motion to make Sarah the vice chair again.
So
Yeah.
Alice is currently the vice chair.
Oh, you're the vice chair this year.
And it's been great, Sarah, great ride. Second, yes.
Sarah is our most recent chair here, so I don't know if that factors into anything.
Nope. It only makes it more better.
So I'm sorry, did you make a motion to make Sarah okay, Sarah Beresford, not Gary, okay, just for clarity of the record, and did somebody second Joey's motion?
I have not heard a second at this point.
Second, I would see. Him in the minutes one more time.
Okay, Cal, we have some discussion, like, for instance, Sarah, do you have any interest in?
That's fine. I don't have any, I do have interest in that. That sounds fine to me.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's done. Joey's final act, any commission.
I got one more meeting.
Yeah, right. You're gonna go with.
Dang, 4th of July.
All
You know,
right,
you're allowed to use this.
the last one is, item on our agenda is miscellaneous announcements. Are there any? Sarah?
I just want to thank Alice, if this is truly your last meeting, I mean, there's a lot to be thankful for, so thank you.
You're here.
I second that.
Thank you.
Can I, there's just a strong for that. I know I sent an email to everyone today, but I just want to emphasize in public a couple of important things. And one is that this has been the most satisfying 10 years of public service. And that includes the 8 years I spent as commission, which was pretty darn satisfying. But this has been the most, and it is because of you all, and especially you all we have here, and the forward-making progress that we're doing together. And I just can't be prouder. And all I can say to you all is thank you for including me as part of that, and please keep going.
You're here.
Seeing no other miscellaneous announcements, I think we will adjourn on that note. Thank you, Alice, for your many years of. I'm sorry, would someone care to make a motion?
Motion made. Second.
Seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We could also make it one of the shortest planning commission.
Record time.
It's gonna be late outside.
On the corner of Virginia, is that right? And